Hey everyone, how you doing?
What's
It's
up?
Dave here, and I'm joined by Sean from Intentional Carnivore and Larry from Carnivore Quest, and we'll also shortly be joined by Dr. Anthony Chaffee. How you doing, guys?
Doing real good, brother. Glad to be here, hang out with everybody, talk a little carnivore diet, get some questions answered, and it's an honor to be with you both.
And how you doing, Sean? Uh, you can't hear
Uh-oh.
me? Uh,
We got a
There we
little
go.
there he is.
Yeah, man, every
uh,
time I try to go live with those headphones, like something goes haywire. I'm just going to cut it off. So if it starts echoing, let me know. Hey, everybody, it's good to see everybody. Glad to see you guys. I have no idea what you said before. My headset gave me this neuro, which kind of gets me thinking. Like, just spare the moment, ADD moment. Neuralink, bro. Like that made me like zone out back to Neuralink. Okay. Nevertheless, I can't imagine how that's gonna go. But it's good to see everybody. It's good to see you guys. I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Friday night. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing good. I mean, when you were, you couldn't hear us. We were just talking about how handsome you were.
Oh man,
Oh.
dang. Well, that's when I need to be listening. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Doing,
love you
I'm
guys.
doing great tonight, though, man. Looking forward to this. Been feeling great all month. That walking has done an amazing thing. Walking every day and eating those 2 meals a day. Finally seeing the scale move a little bit. Pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's always good.
so, Sean, I think there's a bit of an echo coming through now.
How about that? That better? I turned the noise
Uh,
cancellation back on.
Okay, let me. I'll practice my singing or something. Hang on a second. Oh no,
Do it.
that's much better. Awesome, awesome. No, you
Thanks.
don't want me to practice my singing. I promise.
Hey man, Chafee can do it. You can do it, brother. Come on, let's hear it. Let's see what you got.
A little Metallica.
so, so to completely change the subject, we've got a question already, but it's a question that's quite medical in nature. So I'm going to keep this one maybe until Dr. Chaffee arrives. So it's regarding invasive lobular estrogen progesterone receptor. So I might thank you very much for sending that super chat through, Joe. But I think maybe that's a question that maybe Dr. Chaffee is going to be better suited to answering. So we'll keep that until he joins us. So, but for everyone, if you've got questions, please put a big Q in front of your question, and we will get to your questions in turn. I don't see it's not directly addressed Chaffee at the moment, so please in if you've got them. And so, Larry, how's your week been as far as eating? What have you been up to with diet wise?
It's been great. I mean, everybody following our channel knows for a long time, Cass and I, my wife, were eating 1 meal a day, but we really made the effort this month to get in 2 meals a day, eat more fat, and it's been going good. And I'll tell you, before the show started, we were talking about, deviled eggs that a recipe Sean's wife had made using butter. And Cassie's been using that recipe, tweaked it a little bit, and we've been eating a ton of eggs, which is very unusual for us. So doing real good, getting those 2 meals in a day. Usually eat around anywhere from 11 to 1 p.m. And then we'll have dinner, anywhere between 5 and 7. And then that's it. So feeling
Oh,
really good.
nice.
The best I've felt in months, actually. So what about you, Sean? What you eating?
Man, I'm eating dude. I have been eating like crazy for the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks. Like I went from eating 2 times a day to like I said, about the last 2 weeks. I had been starving at night for some reason, so I started just adding more food in. I had about, let's see, 2 burger patties and 4 eggs about 5 o'clock this afternoon, which I that's my third meal of the day. I had a ribeye for lunch with 3 pats of butter and eggs like I normally do in the mornings. For whatever reason, my body's telling me to eat, and it doesn't have to tell me very many times for me to listen. I go have it. So you know, I still don't eat real close to bedtime. I still don't eat close to whenever I get up, you know, as far as that's concerned. But you know, for whatever reason, you know, I guess I'm getting to a size. We've talked about this, you know, getting to a size to where my body needs some fuel to run on, and it's telling me, it's letting me know for sure. As far as the piano behind me, I wish I could. I did take piano for 5 years. I can read music somewhat still, but you know, it's been quite a while.
Nice. So we've got another question here for you, Sean. Sean, how did you get rid of the flabby skin?
What I had gotten rid of, I imagine it was probably benefited mostly by, you know, the intermittent fasting is basically all that I've done. I haven't, you know, I've worked out as far as walking, but as far as weightlifting, anything like that, I haven't done that. I do still have some flabby skin. I still have some excess skin under my arms and in my belly, on the insides of my legs. Right here's the worst. I feel like, you know, April, like it's turkey season sometimes, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm going to try maybe some extended fasting coming up, unless I'm hungry like I am now, you know, like I have been being. I'd rather deal with the excess skin than my body yelling at me to go eat. But I do want to incorporate some working out, weightlifting wise, and maybe try some extended fasting, because, you know, I don't have the funds to go have surgery. I don't. It's not bad enough for me to go through to those links to try to fix an issue that's a non-issue for me, and it really wasn't that bad at all. So that's just kind of where I'm at with that.
Nice. Okay, Craig is asking, where is Kip? So there's this week. He had some other commitments already, some prior commitments on Friday. So he's not here this week, but he will be back next week. Okay. And Dr. Chaffee, hello. How are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you? Sorry, I'm running late, guys.
It's all good. What's up, man? Doing all right tonight?
No worries.
Yeah, man. How are you?
I can't complain.
Good.
It's all good.
Nice. So, okay. Let's have a look. Peachy Paminin, Peachy Pamas. Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Peachy Pam. For someone who is thinking about starting carnivore, is it better to start with keto? What do you think?
You took me?
Is it better to start with keto?
Well, I'm as far as we go, we did start with a ketogenic diet, and it ended up, we did good on it. We felt really good. We just couldn't stick to it, and we, you know, eventually transitioned into carnivore. We found it much easier as far as you know, preparing your food, not tracking anything. But I say, coming from the standard American diet, you know, there's nothing wrong with starting keto. I mean, I've told many of my friends that, you know, and go from there, you know. Sean?
Yeah, like, so I will preface this with, like, if I begged my mom to get on keto because I wanted her to start into a ketogenic way of eating. And you know, she was so used to eating just salads and low protein, low fat, stuff like that. So, like, I don't think it's wrong to start with keto. However, I feel like if you can go all the way with it, you're going to get the best benefit, because as long as you're putting carbohydrates and sugar into me, I guess I should say, as long as in my mind, I thought if I keep putting sugar and stuff into my system, it's going to keep that urge and those cravings alive. And as long as you're having those cravings, you're going to be tempted to pull back. So, like, in my brain, whenever I started carnivore and then went beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, I needed to go a step further than what I thought I might actually need, if that makes any sense. It's how I was thinking about it when it actually happened and doing the challenge. But I've seen over the last year or a little over a year, talking with people in the group and talking with people in the community and experienced as well that when you take out the sugar, the carbohydrates, the temptations, your urges for those foods are going to go away, and your taste is going to change to a point to where you're not drawn away by that taste and stuff. I don't how it works. It is what it is. I don't know. But you're not putting just a little bit in all the time, if that makes any sense. Maybe one of you guys can say it more clearly than I have done so far, but I would just go as strict as you can. If that means start with keto, then move into carnivore, I would try get it all out of your system, and see what is going to work for you and where you land at. But Dr. Chaffee?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on where your head's at. If you think that you really just want to go carnivore and full on, then just do it. I think that's probably the best way to go. It's like if you're smoking and drinking, you think, okay, I'm going to quit smoking and drinking. Great. If you can just, but you're like, ooh, I don't want to do both of those. Maybe I need the crutch of cigarettes to get me through, getting off the alcohol or whatever. You can do it. You can do it a step at a time. When people aren't just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get straight on that as far as a carnivore diet. And they say, well, what can I do? What should be the first thing that I take off? I always say, go, doing keto, basically, get rid of the sugar, get rid of the carbs, get into the metabolic state that we're supposed to be in the first place. And then have a plan from there to go off successively more and more and more, like, okay, stop all carbs today, next week, stop. And nowhere in my estimation should like seed oils and cooking oils ever exist. So that's like an automatic off as well. And then, and then stepwise progression from there, and then have a date on this day, mark it on the calendar. I'm cutting out, carbs and all these sorts of things. The next week I'm cutting out these things. And then on this date, that's it. That's when everything's gone. If you wanted to do it in a stepwise progression. But when people ask me, what would be the first things I should cut out? I always say, carbs and sugar, and just eat more meat. If you can do that, you cut out the processed foods, you cut out the seed oils, you cut out the carbs and sugar, alcohol as well, if you can, and just increase the amount of fatty meat you're eating, you're going to make massive improvements in your health. And so I think that it just depends on where people are at. But if you have it in your head that you want to do a carnivore diet, then I think it's great to just go right into it if you are the type of person that would do well with that. Some people need to do more stepwise progression, and that's fine.
I do want to throw this in here too, but just because I actually wrote this down out of the book that I've been reading this month, and and some of you guys may be familiar with Atomic Habits, but I just started reading it. I know it's not a new book, but he actually says cravings are what drives habits. A craving isn't for the craving isn't for the habit, but for the change in the state that the habit brings. Like no one craves a cigarette, but you crave the relief it provides. You're not motivated by brushing your teeth, but by the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't want to turn on the TV. You want to be entertained. Every craving is linked to a desire to change your state and bring it about. And as long as you're driven by those cravings for what is coming on the other side of it. And, I found that anytime I have something that, has sugar in it, it makes me want things that I don't normally want, not physically, but mentally it messes with me. So I think if you want to eliminate those cravings, you want to eliminate the habit of falling into those foods and stuff like that, you really do just have to cut it out.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Chaffee, I've had a super chat here that I was saving for when you came in. Joe is asking, wife has invasive lobular estrogen, progesterone receptor positive breast cancer, lumpectomy, 5 days of radiation, next hormone blockers. Will keto affect hormone blockers, and are HBs bad?
Well, everything comes with added effects. People say side effects, but as a doctor rightly pointed out one time that I liked, he said that drugs don't have side effects; they have effects, and some of them you want, some of them you don't, right? And so that's the same here. So in this context, are those effects on the balance better or worse? And generally, I would say. That would be up to her doctor to make that decision. That's looks like what they've decided. So I wouldn't speak against that. Keto is not going to damage hormone blockers. It shouldn't mess with anything in a negative sense. It should actually give a positive result, especially with chemo and radiation, because there were two studies, one in 2019, one in 2020, looking at ketogenic diets and chemo and radiation. They found that in both cases, that being on a ketogenic diet, being in ketosis for a large period of time, actually made the cancer cells more sensitive to the chemo and radiation. So they killed more cancer cells, right? More bang for your buck. And it protected your healthy cells more, right? So you didn't get as much damage. Your wife isn't going to be as hurt and damaged by the chemo and radiation, and the cancers will get hit even harder. So, there are a number of different cancers that have actually shown extraordinarily good, efficacy with a ketogenic metabolic therapy by starving the body of added sugars and carbohydrates, which the cancer feeds on. One of those is triple negative breast cancer. That was a specific study that was very aggressive breast cancer that showed very good results. Other cancers have shown very good results as well, breast cancers and others included. So, I do think that this is something that's going to be positive. There is literature to support it, and studies and scientific data that's already been collated for this specific type of cancer as well. And either way, it's not going to damage her. It's not going to mess with her hormone blockers, or it shouldn't. I don't know of any reason why it would. And it will help protect her and sensitize the cancer to the chemo and radiation. So I think all in all, this is a very good idea to address these sorts of things nutritionally. Because the thing is, some doctors will say, actually, in fact, a lot of doctors will say, diet doesn't matter, eat whatever you want, smoke and drink and blah, blah, blah. Of course, that's wrong. That's insane. And they would know that if you ask them, okay, so she can smoke, she can drink, she can do drugs. I don't know about that. Yeah, okay, so don't say something unless you've actually thought it through. But a lot of them will say, no, diet doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It absolutely does. And and I think it's very defeatist. They're telling somebody that they have no control over their lives. For the next few years, it's just like you're at the whim of the universe and the oncologist, and that's it. It's just the oncologist fighting nature, and that's not the case. You have so much control over your own body and your destiny on this one. And so, don't forget that, diet makes a big difference. You being as healthy as you possibly can be will give you the best chance of survival, period, in any circumstance. Right. And especially when you're talking about cancer, where you're getting hit with chemo and radiation, and you're dealing with this, very nasty disease, your body needs to be really strong. Your immune system needs to be really strong. Ketogenic diet improves immune system, full stop. And it also helps get rid of visceral fat. So does exercise, like sprinting and weightlifting. May be difficult to do when you're going through chemo, but getting rid of visceral fat has a direct benefit on cancer survival, right? There's a study, and we've known this for a while, that your natural killer T cells, NKT cells, are your frontline fighters against cancer, right? And we've known for a while that people that are more overweight have just linearly less NKT cells in their system, right? So they have less of an immune system available specifically to fight cancer. Okay, the Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, who I played rugby for, they just came out with a study this year showing why that is. They found that visceral fat cells are metabolically active. We know this. So unlike other fat cells, the visceral fat cells, the fat around your abdominal organs, they actually have receptors that will bind in natural killer T cells and pull them into the fat cells and the visceral fat cells. And so that's what's actually pulling them out of your circulations, because they're all sequestered and tied up in your fat cells, in your visceral fat. So getting rid of that visceral fat frees up those NKT cells. So they found that there's a direct relationship. The more visceral fat you have, the less natural killer T cells you have. The higher your risk of cancer, the worse your outcomes of cancer, the higher the death rate, the mortality rate of cancers are, the more visceral fat you have. So her diet, if it does nothing else, if it doesn't actually starve it, if Otto Warburg, the Nobel Prize winner, was just completely full of it, and it doesn't actually feed cancers, and cancers don't actually need 400 times the amount of glucose to run and process as every other cells, which we know from PET scans. You get a PET scan, you give them glucose, and it lights up areas that suck in a lot of glucose, which is cancer and your brain. And so even if that's wrong, even if that had nothing to do with it, and the oncologist, it doesn't have anything to do with it, we know it helps with chemo and radiation, and we know that it gets rid of visceral fat, right? Those are two things that are going to massively increase her chances of survival and not be so damaged by the treatment. So I think this is something I feel very strongly about, obviously, and that's why I've gone on for 10 minutes, but I do think it's really, really important for people to know about.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me just go down here and have a look at True Health super chat. Thank you very much, True Health. True Health is asking about omega-3 concerns. Hates fish and no grass-fed beef. Is omega-3 a concern? Dr. Chaffee, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so fish has a lot of omega-3s. That's true. Grass-fed beef has plenty of omega-3s. Grain-finished beef can still have omega-3s, but less. So, and it depends on how long they've been going. So there are some studies that look at the length of feeding in a feedlot and the amount of omega-3s to omega-6s, and after about 3 months you sort of lose all the omega-3s and it's just omega-6s at that point. So I mean, it's probably a bit of a concern, if you're only doing grain finished. Omega-3s are very important. I mean, you do need these things. They're very good for you, especially for your brain. And so you could try taking a supplement. The problem is that fish oil supplements have largely been shown to be pretty poor quality, and they can be quite rancid and be pro-inflammatory and things like that. May not have the omega-3 fatty acids intact in an intact form. So there's actually, unfortunately, quite a high percentage of the fish oils have been found to be pretty poor quality. So I think that what you should do is just try to sort of think of these things as just taking your medicine and a bit of a supplement. Just have a bit of fish sometimes, have some sardines sometimes, a bit of cod liver. You can get some cod liver that's going to have in its oil, that's going to have a ton of omega-3s. And if you can't get grass fed, I mean, I don't get much grass finished beef either, but every now and then I'll try to get some cod liver with its oil, or have some sardines and, things like that. So just adding in, a bit of organs or a bit of fish and things like that every now and then. It doesn't have to be every day, but, I would be conscious of that and try to add it in, every now and then anyway. And for kids especially, you should probably make sure that they've got a good omega-3 a supply of omega-3 and DHA and EPA and things like that, because that's a major building block for the brain. That's like 70% of the physical structure of your brain is fat, right? Fat and cholesterol. About 20% of that fat is DHA, right? So that's a big portion of your brain, and so you need that coming in, because we don't really make it too well. We do make it a little bit. We don't make it to the extent that we need. So something to be thought of. But yeah, when we were just eating mammoths, we didn't eat any fish. They had omega-3s. Horses and cows and all these sorts of things, eating their natural food definitely had omega-3s, but we don't live in that world anymore. So you have to sort of think about these things and sort of add in a bit, from other sources.
Thank you. And we've got a super chat from Kip. Just wanted to say thanks. The time you all take to make content is much appreciated. Thank you very much. And Virgie La Whiteside is asking, I've had low potassium in the past. Do I need to worry about that on Carnivore? Went from vegan to Carnivore 1.5 months ago. Sean, you got any thoughts on potassium?
Yeah, so I would definitely eat meat, but I take electrolyte supplements. That's probably the only thing that I do add in regularly. I use keto chow. I've actually tried the element. So I do supplement with those. That's usually the only things that I really add in. Get the magnesium, potassium, and sodium if I need it. If I have cramps really bad or something, I'll add it in for that day. But there have been plenty of days where I didn't. So haven't had an issue with my potassium being out of whack whenever I have my blood work done. But it's definitely something that you should watch. And I mean, I don't think necessarily you have to, track everything, but I think it's a good idea that if you're going to worry about it, go get your blood work done and figure out where your numbers are and keep an eye on it, because, stressing out and stressing your body out when you can have the clear answers and know kind of sort of where your body's at and how it's responding and what you can do to change some of that stuff, it's going to put your mind at ease, and it's going to help your journey a lot better. And you're going to be able to ask and find the answers to questions. This is definitely going to help you. So, sure. Yeah. I would keep an eye on your potassium and add the electrolytes. Larry, you got anything, brother?
Yeah, I would add, I'd agree with Sean. Like, if you're stressed out about it, definitely go get your blood work done. We were Cassie and I kind of had a rebel attitude when we started. It's like, let's just start eating this diet and see how it makes us feel. And it wasn't long, a couple of weeks before we started getting severe leg cramps, headaches. And so we started supplementing with electrolytes. But we've never really worried about, are we going to be deficient in this and deficient in that? And that came from a lot of time, watching people on YouTube, Dr. Berry, Dr. Chaffee, Laura Spath, and these testimonies of, you're going to get everything you need from the food. And, if some symptom came up where we weren't feeling good, then we would address it. But like the omega-3s, I've never really worried about that. I mean, am I right, Dr. Chaffee, and that beef liver has omega-3s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we have that a couple times a week, but other than that, maybe fish every once in a while. But we always just listen to our body, and really, there's a lot of information out there. People who have already eaten the diet. But if you are one of those people that stress on it, Sean is great advice. Go get your blood work done and see what's up. Dr. Chaffee.
Yeah, well, I would agree that, if you've had low potassium in the past, there might be an underlying reason why that is. Low potassium is extraordinarily rare. Like diagnosed on blood tests is very, very rare. Obviously it happens, we know about it, but it's usually people that are quite sick in the hospital, that can get this. But if that's something that you've had before, you need to be aware of that. You could have some sort of underlying issue, or could have been a product of being vegan and having a sort of a disruption in your electrolytes from that. But certainly do keep track of it. You want to test these things. Converting from keto or from eating carbs and things like that into any sort of ketogenic diet, you can get a disruption of your electrolytes, which usually normalizes after a while. And so it's rare that people need to take supplements ongoing. You're sort of 1.5 months in, so 6 weeks on. Most people are sort of out of that window at that point. So if you haven't had any issues at this point, it's likely that you won't have any in the future, but it's easy to check. and especially if you get a disruption in your rhythm or rate of your heartbeat, right? So because one of the things that low potassium can do is it can put you into atrial fibrillation or give you any some sort of other arrhythmia in your heart, and that's not good. So if you're noticing you get a very rapid heartbeat or it's really irregular, then you need to go get checked out, and you need to go to your doctor ASAP. Basically, go to like an urgent care or an ER or something like that. Because if your potassium's too low and you're getting that crazy, super fast heartbeat, that can be a prelude to getting a more serious arrhythmia as well, and that can be life-threatening if it gets really, really low. So if you've had a problem with that in the past and you notice anything like that, then probably take some potassium and then go and get checked out and get an EKG, ECG, depending on the part of the world that you're in. But if you're feeling perfectly fine, you get a well baby check and get your bloods tested and your potassium's fine and you feel fine, you can continue on like that. It's easy enough to take a potassium supplement or LMNT or the keto chow. I just wouldn't do it anything with sweeteners or artificial sweeteners or anything like artificial flavors or anything like that if you do. But you can just do that and cover your bases, and at some point you can just try coming off of them and checking and see how you go. But that's what I would do.
Nice, thank you. So guys, we're about half an hour into this. We've got 510 people live across all 4 channels. And you can help us to get more people into the stream simply clicking the like button. So if you haven't clicked the like button on whichever channel you're watching on now, please do so, and that will tell YouTube to go and find more people to bring in. Thank you very much. Okay. So Brain Games is asking, what kind of progress can you expect if you cut sugar carbs, but you still eat snack throughout the day? Can one be productive if eating throughout the day? Larry, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, my first 60 days on the carnivore diets, I had an eating window, and it was about 7 hours. And I would have a snack. I'd have a little pile of bacon if I got hungry. Now I don't snack much at all, but when I first started, that's a lot of weight to lose in 60 days. And sometimes I'd have 2 snacks. I did cut out the cheese at the time. Well, I know actually I had cheese. I had 2 ounces once a week. My first 60 days. So because in previous attempts, I was consuming a lot of cheese, and in the same amount of time, I'd only lost 25 pounds in 60 days. Just cutting out that cheese, though, I lost 50 pounds when I really committed. So, but yeah, that's snacking. It's not a big deal now, but I enjoyed a snack here and there as long as it was meat. When I first started, so I don't see a problem with that from my experience. Sean?
Yeah, so I just don't think that, I don't know. You kind of have to figure it out what's going to work for you. But when I started eating like this, I heard Dr. Berry explain, and I found it to be extremely beneficial for me, that whenever you're hungry, if you want to break your addiction to food, eat until you're full. Whenever you get full on fat and protein, you're not going to want a snack. You're not going to want any more, and then you don't eat until you're hungry again. We're not grazers. We're eaters. You go out, you kill an animal, you get full, so you're not going to spike your sugar eating meat as much as you would eating the standard American diet. I do know that your sugar is not going to fluctuate, and it's not going to dip and drop. It will go up whenever you eat anything. So you don't want to just continuously be raising that, that number, your blood sugar up all the time, constantly, all day long. You just eat one time, eat till you're full, and then eat again whenever you get hungry again. And you're going to find that, well, I found that, the more time that went on, the less hungry I was. And, it wasn't something everybody always asks, did you fast? No, I didn't fast. I intermittent fast, but it was a natural thing. I was getting full on the fat and protein, and I just didn't want anything else. And then when my body said, hey, you're hungry, I went and had more. It seems so simple because it really is. That's what, go ahead.
I'd like to add to that, coming back at you, that it was more of a habit. Snacking was more of a habit. I'm sure a lot of us watching, can relate to walking in and opening the refrigerator like a zombie and just like sitting there staring at it because you're so used to, grabbing a snack. And that eventually subsided and went away. But yeah, I should have added that. A big part of the snacking was just a habit, and it eventually, poof, it was gone.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to break. I agree with you 100%. I'm not saying, you go from having the habit to tomorrow you wake up, and for some people they can do that. For some people they can't. It's a process. But in my brain, whenever I finally got a hold of this thing, that's exactly what I was trying to break, was my addiction to food. And I was trying to make food fuel, not emotion, if that makes sense, to separate the two.
Dr. Chaffee, did you have any thoughts on this?
It's a very common thing that people ask. It's just like, well, what do I snack on, this, that, and the other? I point out exactly, as everyone was saying, that while that's a sort of a natural sort of habit to sort of have, when you're eating full meals and things like that, you really don't want to snack as much. And you point that out, you eat until you're full, and then fatty meat, you tend to not really want to. You tend to eat once a day, twice a day, something like that. You don't really feel like snacking in between that. If you did want to snack between that, sometimes if you are feeling snacky, you feel like, I kind of want to snack on something, it might be that you're hungry and you just need to eat, right? And so you just sort of eat enough. You don't just sort of snack on something, actually eat, make a steak, make some hamburger patties or some eggs or something like that, and eat until it stops tasting good, and you'll probably squash that out. But in general, it's not the frequency in eating that's the problem. It's what we're eating in those times that is the problem. You're eating garbage, I kind of want to eat something, so you'll settle for anything. There's a vending machine, there's a McDonald's or whatever. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'll just grab something and whatever, because I have to eat, and I'll die if I don't eat every 2 hours or something like that. So it's imperative that I just eat whatever floor chocolate I find. So it's so it's more about what you're eating rather than if you're eating 13 times a day. You'll tend to eat less, as as Sean was saying, he sort of intermittent fast, but it's not that he's intermittent fasting out of choice. He said, I'm only gonna eat during this window. It's just he didn't want to, and that's what I do as well. So I tend to do one meal a day, but that's because that's when I'm hungry. I eat once a day and I'm good, for the whole next day, for like 24 hours. If I'm working out a lot and pushing myself, I might do that twice in a day, but I'm not doing an eating window. I'm not doing that because, I have to sort of eat during this sort of blah, blah, blah. It's just because that's when I'm hungry. And when I'm hungry, I eat until I'm full, and then I get on with my life.
Well, I used to, I always, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I always tell people on the channel that, whenever you go to the gas station to put gas in your car, it doesn't matter if it's the BP or the Shell or the Exxon or the whatever gas station is. As long as it puts fuel in your car and can get you to work in the morning, it works, right? So like whenever your body wants fuel, you put the correct fuel in it to make it run optimally and efficiently, and then you don't have to fill up until you need more energy. So that's just kind of, if we put 73 octane in there, it's not going to work as good as if we put 93 or 101 octane. Give it that ruminant meat, my friend.
Nice. Okay, so Gossage, thank you very much for the super chat. You didn't have a question. If you do have a question, please punch it in, and we'll jump onto. Oh, yes, you do. Here we go. Dr. Chaffee, you mentioned that type 1 diabetics on carnivore can use only basal insulin. How? I'm a type 1 and have been doing strict carnivore for 2 years. I always have to cover protein with bolus insulin.
Well, look, everyone's going to have a bit of a different response to these sorts of things, but the vast majority, well, literally every type 1 diabetic that I've ever spoken to, apart from yourself, has been able to pare down their insulin to like a basal dose of long acting insulin, and they just sort of and they don't need to take fast acting bolus for for meal times. So that's interesting. I mean, you've been on this for 2 years. I don't know if there's anything else in your system or anything else you bring in, artificial sweeteners or dairy or anything like that could mess with that. But if you're only doing fatty meat and water and absolutely nothing else, then and there are even different sort of lectins and things like that. If you are including some vegetables and or seeds or anything like that can disrupt insulin and insulin receptors and things like that as well. So that's something to think about. But if you're only doing fatty meat and water exclusively and nothing else, and you don't have other sort of medications that might interfere as well, that's what I've seen is that type 1 diabetics, they only need that background level of insulin, and that just sort of keeps them here. And then the slight variations that they have, their body keeps that actually pretty tightly controlled. So hopefully, I don't know if how tight you are onto that just meat and water, but if you're not, then I would definitely go to that and give that a try and see how you go. You'd be surprised how very small amounts of things can actually have very big effects. That's why I always say like the last 5% of going completely meat and water has about 95% of the benefit, because there's these tiny little things that can really throw off your system, and in ways that we really don't think, well, it's just a little bit of this, that, and the other. It does make a big difference, and especially for some people that have specific medical conditions, it can have a huge effect. So if you're not doing that, I would do that, just meat and water, and see how you go. If you have been doing just meat and water, that's interesting. Hopefully this is something that can settle down over time, and you'll just need less. And hopefully you're using less and less and less insulin. I would imagine that you are. And, it may be that your body just sort of reacts like that. If you're eating protein, are you eating enough fat with that protein? Or is it sort of being a bit too much of a hit with just the protein? So sometimes if you're eating too lean, maybe that can be a bit of an issue. And if you have, it's not that big of a deal to take a bolus of fast acting insulin, first of all, but second of all, if you don't like that, you could try spacing out the meals and see if that gives a smaller effect on your blood sugar to where you wouldn't necessarily need to use insulin.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, so we have another super sticker from Freedom on Carnivore. Thank you very much, Freedom on Carnivore. Very kind of you. Okay,
Sunday.
and Carlos is asking, I'm sure you fellas are surrounded by those still afflicted with metabolic illnesses. Do any of you feel guilty that you're succeeding while others remain on their downward trajectory? Sean, do you want to address this one?
I was trying to process it for a second. Honestly, no, I don't feel guilty. I feel guilty that, I wish I could do it for them. I mean, honestly, I spend a lot of time, even more time now than ever, trying to get the message out, to try to explain what I do. I've taught them, even when I'm not on camera, not on YouTube, I spend a lot of time talking, texting, messaging, chatting, trying to share that message of how I did it and how it worked for me. I mean, obviously I'm not trying to suggest that if you eat the exact same meals every single day that I eat every single day, that you're going to see the same thing. But I mean, honestly, your body is going to achieve what it can achieve if you follow eating beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, eat carnivore, eat keto, whatever it is that you're trying, and move into being as strict as you can. I mean, that I feel like that's how you're going to see the best results. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm doing all I can do, personally at the given moment. So no, I don't feel guilty. I'm excited because I spent 20 years of failing to get to where I am today. So I also want to relay that you don't have to keep failing or making mistakes just because you made one. There's a lot of people who fall. There's a lot of people who fail. I did for a long time. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting on here once a week or, 6 times a week the last couple of weeks, and trying to, share that message and spread that message how I can, so that other people can find their way out of that. You don't have to continue living that way. Don't hold yourself captive to that. Larry, you got anything, brother?
Yeah, I don't feel guilty at all. I mean, I gained almost 100 pounds while I was on YouTube, and I don't think anybody felt guilty for me. It's like everybody's got their personal choices to make. Like when I got sober, I see people struggling with alcohol, and I've been sober 8 years, and I have a lot of empathy for them. And it's the same way with the people struggling with their weight. You just want to grab them and shake them and say, just try the carnivore diet for 60 days. And like Sean and really everybody on this panel, our lives, a big part of our lives are dedicated to helping people. So we feel bad when people don't get it and they're not finding progress. But really, that's just because, I really haven't seen anybody not have good progress with a carnivore diet who are obese and have a lot of weight to lose. You stick to the diet, you're going to lose weight. Now, there's some nuances there. You're going to, maybe catch a stall like I did, or try and figure out some things on your own. But, just stick to the diet. And 99% of people that I've dealt with have progress. But as far as feeling guilty, not at all, because I see so many success stories, and all of us have helped a lot of people. So that's pretty cool. Dr. Chaffee?
Yeah. So same idea. I mean, I don't feel guilty per se, but I do feel bad, and that's why I do this. I've seen how much this has benefited my life and benefited, the lives of my family and my patients. And this is something that I feel that is very, very important, that people have so much more control over their lives and their health, and they realize they're not at the whim of doctors and pharmaceutical companies and things like that. They actually can just be healthy, even if they're very unhealthy and have a lot of medical issues. The large majority of those issues stem directly from eating things that are not biologically designed to go in our body. And when you just get away from that, they go away. And that's what I've seen. And so that's why I'm very passionate about this. And that's why I've, started doing this and detracting from my actual career to do this in order to try to get that out there. So, I see people with metabolic illness. I walk around, in the malls and stores and the hospital all the time. And I see people, and it's just like, it's just there to me now. I can almost see people's diets just on their body. It's just like, oh, that one's a vegan, that one's, just a lot of carbs. That one's a lot of other things. So, it's something that, I don't think you should feel guilty that you are doing something, that you are healthy. I mean, you can see people that have, been born with something or being in an accident. You feel, oh my God, I feel really bad for them. But if someone is in an accident and they lose their legs, you shouldn't feel guilty that you have them. It's just, you should be real, you can feel sympathy for them. They probably don't want your pity, and would be pretty upset if you tried to give it to them. But, it's just a matter of, you don't have to feel guilty for doing something that provides you good health. Right. But you should try to try to educate people and bring this to other people and let them know what you did, and it's to say, hey, this is what I did. Anybody else can do it. I'm not selling a product. You don't have to like do my course and my 6-minute abs sort of app or whatever. It's just like, this is what I did. You can try it too. And that's what we're trying to do here too. And I think that's when someone's just telling you, hey, this is how I did it, this is how I succeeded, and they're not trying to sell it as part of a package or a course or something like that. I think that's probably more, A, it's more sincere, but B, it's probably more believable. You're just saying, hey, look, hey guys, this worked for me. Why don't you try it? You guys can do it. It's free. Just go for it. Some people think that, if it doesn't cost anything, it's not worth anything. But a lot of people are just trying to let people know what worked for them so that others can take that and try it as well. But it's up to the individual to try that. And if someone's, doesn't know about it yet, well, you can try and educate them. And if they don't want to do that, well, then that's on them, and I'm certainly not going to feel guilty. If someone doesn't want to do this and doesn't want to try it, it's like, okay, well, that's your choice. I still feel bad for them. I still wish that they would do it, but it is their choice, and I can't really do much more than that.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a follow-up comment on this as well, and it's related to something that Larry said regarding the alcohol. Like, I feel bad for people, feel guilty. And it's exactly the same as with alcohol, like I'm 13 months old, and I don't feel guilty when I see someone else rolling around on the ground and unable to stand up because they've had too much to drink. I feel bad for them, and I feel bad that they're going to have a horrible hangover tomorrow morning, but I don't feel guilty. Yeah, so I think there's kind of a difference between feeling bad and feeling guilty. Okay, so what Running Tap 12 is asking, what about meats like salami, etc.? Not too bad. Larry, how do you feel about meats like that?
Yeah, if they're around, I might nibble on them. During the holidays, we had some salami. When we go on vacation, we might take some something like that. But we don't have that stuff around the house. So at a special occasion, that's about it. Sean?
Yeah, I haven't honestly eaten very much. If I was in a pinch and like there was no cows in a field somewhere, or butcher shops within driving distance or walking distance for that matter, like, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, it's not the worst that you can have, but obviously if that's what you can afford, eat that. That's way better than a lot of the box stuff and sugar filled stuff. A lot of those things you got to be careful of, the fillers and the packers and the additives that they put in those things. If you can get it, fresh stuff, it is what it is. But I just think that I'm just a steak guy, honestly. I mean, I'm personally not going to choose anything over a steak these days, except for maybe some eggs to go with the steak. Everyone, but I think that if that's what gets you through and that's sustainable for you, then you could definitely do worse. But I feel like you could probably get more nutrition and get better stuff from fatty ruminant meat. You guys, Chaffee, you got anything on that one?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's not as bad as just eating a whole bunch of plants. Like processed meats, it's just what are they processed with? It's not more meat, right? They add in plants, they add in seasonings, they add in sugar, they add in artificial ingredients. So that's what's bad, is those additives. So you can look at the ingredients list and you can see what is being added to it. If it's a whole bunch of stuff, it's a lot of really spicy and this and that, it's probably going to have a lot more crap in it that you don't want. So you can look at it that way. I still have salami every now and then, but I make sure that it's it has as few spices and seasonings and sugar and things added to it as possible. I strictly avoid anything that's red. That's going to have a bunch of like peppers and all that sort of stuff in it. So I don't want any of that. Even though it might taste nice, I know that it's not going to make me feel my best. So I avoid that. Also, I mean, bologna is one thing. I mean, that's cheaper, obviously. Spam, things like that. Salami is pretty expensive. So, like if you're going for salami, it's probably more for a treat, and an exception is something that's sort of nice to have, and that's fine. But just make sure that it's not bringing in too much nasty stuff. I certainly wouldn't have it every day, or certainly not in large quantities. And it is generally more expensive anyway. So I would stick mostly to the whole meats. Just a cut of beef or chicken or fish or pork or lamb that you cook yourself and you prepare yourself. That's always going to be cheaper. That's nearly always going to be more nutritious. And so that's what I would mainly focus on. If you want some salami every now and then, just try to make sure it doesn't have a whole bunch of garbage in it. And but it's certainly going to be better than the alternative. But for optimal results, stick to the whole meats. Yeah. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I avoid them just because it's hard to get anything without lots of preservatives, lots of sugars, and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, stay away as far as I'm concerned. A Corianissima, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Thank you very much. And also we've got Cool Tech Dreamer, $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Thank you all for what you do for the community. BBBE. Nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go with another question here. Mama Bear Lynette. Do any of you make coffee in a French press? I cannot seem to get it right, but I really want to. I don't. Sean, how about you?
I do not actually. I've never used a French press. I've used a coffee maker. That's about as high tech as I got. So I don't.
Larry?
Yeah, Mama Bear. She actually asked this on one of our videos today, and Cassie's thinking about just doing how to work a French press video for you, Mama Bear. So look for that. It's, if you are familiar with a French press, if you're a coffee drinker, it really drops the acidity down, and it's a really smooth cup of coffee, which makes consuming it black without the cream or half and half much easier. So keep an eye out for that, Mama Bear. It's good to see you. Dr. Chaffee, you're not drinking that coffee, right?
I don't drink coffee. One thing that people should be aware of is when you do a French press, that you actually extract it's called what's it called, rancid oils from the coffee bean, and I think it's over 160 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. That's when they come out. So it's around there anyway, 160, 180, whatever. Anyway, well under boiling. And that will bring out those rancid oils, and those have a deleterious effect on your blood pressure. So it can actually spike blood pressure. So that's where like cold brew coffee comes in, because it's too low of a temperature to pull out those fats, melt them out of the seed. But also filter coffee. Filter coffee tends to filter out and take out those oils. So it's just something to think about. I agree that French press probably tastes better and is nicer, but that's something to think about. And especially if someone who has blood pressure issues, you should definitely think about that. I was actually speaking to someone the other day, and they were they started having blood pressure issues out of nowhere, and that was one of the things. It was just like, okay, are you doing this? Having espressos, having French press sort of thing. So that's something that you want to think about as well. So if you're having sort of blood pressure issues, you probably need to go to filter or just get rid of it. And the thing too with the cream and stuff like that, I think that's probably the only redeeming part of like a coffee is the cream or the milk, because at least that's animal fats and things like that are going to be good for you. So obviously you don't want to add sugar, but the cream part, probably the best part of that whole equation.
I'm addicted, Dr. Chaffee. I'm addicted.
Yeah. That's one of the things that, like, so many people, like, they go carnivore, but they're like, you're not touching my coffee. Like you
Right.
just get
Well,
that
you know,
stale.
we tried the lion diet last month, and I made it 3 days, brother, without coffee,
Yeah.
and I woke up with a headache that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I'm
one thing
impressed
you
you
could
get
do.
3 days in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you
Go
know,
ahead.
so those headaches, those are real. You know, I mean, those can be really bad. But you know, what you can do is you can just take like small dose of like a caffeine pill, right? You can get some no dose, cut them up into half or quarters, and you get that headache. You just take one of those. That'll be enough to get rid of the headache, but it's a lot less caffeine than you're normally having, and it keeps you away from the coffee, right? And so if you want the caffeine, A, to wake you up, or B, to stave off the withdrawal headaches, you know, then you can take a caffeine. You can just take caffeine. You can buy that. It's actually a lot cheaper. You can get on Amazon. You can get 200 pills for $8, right? So that's like 2 Starbucks, right? 2 cheap Starbucks,
Right.
and you don't get all the other things, right? So you're getting the caffeine, which is what you want, but you're not getting 150,000 other chemicals that are in coffee, right? There's 150,000 chemicals in coffee. Okay, so we just want the one, just the caffeine, and but you can get that in a pill, and it's much cheaper as well. And if you are trying to come off of it and wean yourself off of it, that's a good way of getting through the withdrawals. And then you're taking far less, and the next day maybe you have a headache, but it's going to be less, and it's going to be less, it's going to be less, and you're taking less, and so you can actually wean yourself off of it that way as well. And that's something that people have had some success with.
Well, when I attempted again, that will definitely be an
When I
option.
feel like torturing myself and giving up coffee, then I'll think about it. Thank
I'll
you.
tell you. Well, you know, last week when Cassie was on with you guys and you guys were in the green room, she's like, a lot of what Dr. Chaffee said, you were like planting the seeds in her head. She's talking
Yeah.
about giving up coffee. So,
Yeah. No. You know, it's look, if you're just eating meat and you're drinking coffee as well, I mean, you're doing so much better than you would before. But you know, I definitely noticed a difference. Like I don't drink coffee not because you know someone said, oh, you probably shouldn't. It's just I don't want it. Like when I drink coffee, I feel markedly worse, and so it's just like that's not something that I want. You know.
I cut it out for 5 months and then added it back like a dummy.
Well,
That's
how'd you
5
feel?
months and then put it back.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, 5 months, and then I added it back, and like honestly, I swear I drink coffee and have less energy now. Like I had more energy when I didn't drink coffee. It's so crazy, but I love the taste of coffee. I'm addicted. I'm something wrong with my head. I don't know.
That's a thing.
Ribeye steak, egg, and coffee.
It's so bitter, you know. I mean, it's objectively bad, right? You know, it's just like but people get used to it as an acquired taste, just like whiskey and things like that. But it actually doesn't taste good like a Coke, you know, or a steak, or it's just like, wow, that's delicious, you know. It's it tastes bad, but then we like see these like varying degrees of bad, like alcohol or beer, beer and wine, things like that. The kid at first was like, Jesus God, what is that? And then you go on like a wine tasting tour or like a whiskey tour experience or something like that, and you're trying this one, and this has this different nose and this different thing. Now you're like thinking about it, and you think about this wretched flavor difference, and like, oh, and that's what they were going for. They were going for that horrible taste, and like this is why, and this is what it. And for some damn reason, you can taste that stuff now, and you start to appreciate it more. It's weird. I think it's just rampant brainwashing, but it's like, but I noticed it as well. Yeah, I couldn't stand. I always wanted to like Scotch, but I never did. And then I did like a Scotch tasting thing, like in Scotland. And all of a sudden, it was just like in my head, I could taste these different notes and do these things. All of a sudden, I liked whiskey. The same thing with beers and wines and things like that. So it's weird how that can get in your head when you start thinking about, the different types of awful that these things taste. And now for some reason you like them, maybe in comparison to other things that are just way worse. You're like in high school. For those of us who drank in high school, you can't afford much, you don't have access to much, and you're getting this vodka that tastes like, nail polish remover. Actually tasted like nail. I was like I kept looking at the bottle. I was like, is this nail polish remover? This is horrible. And you're just trying to do that because you want to get the effect. And then all of a sudden you get to college and get some Smirnoff, and like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so good,
Like Mad Dog 2020.
Oh my God, dude, Jesus, I think I've drank Mad Dog, I think twice. Those are two very bad experiences. Those are two very bad days.
Yeah.
Not good stuff. Yeah, it's like, I mean, the stuff, this is like toxic glowing green. It looks like the mutagen from like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, like people drink this stuff. You know?
That's right.
It's not gonna end well.
You mean
That's
the more
true.
green, the more it's not? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's more greeny goodness. You know, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you can really taste the green. This is good.
So,
bad.
Alexiev has sent through a super chat. Alexiev, if you've got a question, please put it in. We're happy to answer your question. Thank you very much for that super chat. Cat Lady has sent a super chat. This one was actually directed to you, Dr. Chaffee, in a previous question. I have a friend with trigeminal neuralgia. Would the carnivore diet help with this pain?
It very much depends on the cause of the trigeminal neuralgia. There are different causes. You can actually get aberrant vessels in your brain that actually move and shift because you're just getting this pulse and pressure. You can actually move the vessels. They can actually move. So, in your arm, they're pretty stuck. You have a lot of thick tissue that's just sort of holding all that together. In your brain, it's not the same. Certain ones are stuck in tissue and they're probably not moving anywhere. Some are more on the surface and they just have sort of loose connective tissue. It's called the arachnoid the arachnoid matter. That's sort of holding that together. And it's just, it can sort of move a bit. And so these things can move, and all of a sudden you can get this vessel that's sort of pressing up against your trigeminal nerve, and then every time it pulses and beats, it's just smacks on that nerve. And so just like you're on your funny bone, your ulnar nerve there, you smack that and your whole arm goes numb. That's basically having a blood vessel just tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, just constantly with every beat. So if that's the cause, probably not. Probably you might need surgical intervention, which is something you sort of make a decision there, take a little bit of bone out, work your way down, and put a piece of Teflon in between those vessels and the nerve. There are other ones that are just sort of from different reasons. Sometimes you do like an ablation or rhizolysis, where you sort of stick a needle in and sort of nuke the trigeminal nerves as they're coming out. So it depends on the cause. But it will definitely reduce the inflammation and experience of that pain in general, right? So when people have pain, neurological pain or physical pain, arthritic pain, all these sorts of things, that damage or that aberrant anatomy, that is going to be a problem, right? But when you have a lot of inflammation in your body, your experience and expression of pain, the amount of pain signal that goes up that nerve is increased. So your experience of the same injury or the same issue like arthritis is going to be worse, right? And so that can certainly be the case in neurological issues as well. So when people have nerve compressions and things like that, and they go on to a ketogenic carnivore diet, a lot of them can actually experience less pain. It's not going to free up the compression, but they can experience less symptoms as a result of that. Other people that have had surgery, decompressed their back or their nerves or whatever, but the nerve has been damaged in such a way just from years of compression that the pain doesn't actually go away. And we tell them, hey, look, we don't have anything we can do for you anymore. Unfortunately, the nerve just has to heal or it won't. I have seen people go on a carnivore diet and that, sort of does the trick, and that people had suffering with fibromyalgia, which is just sort of, a non-specific pain disorder, where it's usually a diagnosis of exclusion, where people basically, half, the doctors you speak to think it's made up. This is just in their head, or they're just drug seeking, or they're just, just being a bit of a whiner, but I've seen people extremely afflicted by this. And what I think is most telling is that when people have had fibromyalgia and sciatica pain and all these sorts of things, that they're being treated with opiates and other sorts of painkillers for over a decade, and then all of a sudden, they go on a carnivore diet, and they said within a month they were able to come off. They said they, for the first time in 12 years, they were off opiates and all of the painkillers, and they were just so happy about it. So that's obviously not drug-seeking behavior. That's obviously not someone who wants to get high and is pretending to be in pain. That's someone who is in pain and is trying to survive, and they're like, oh, thank God I can get off those things. So after 12 years of that stuff, they were able to get off. And I had a number of people tell me about that. So I did a video on my YouTube channel about pain and fibromyalgia, and where I sort of spoke about this. Look at the comments. The comments, there are hundreds of people who have all had the same experience, where they had some sort of serious neurological pain, fibromyalgia, sciatica, radiculopathy, trigeminal neuralgia, and they said that like nothing worked. This finally worked, and they're so happy. So it's pretty incredible. It does depend on the cause, right? But I think overall, it will probably reduce symptoms at least, and so it's going to improve their life in a number of different ways anyway. But they need to see a neurologist, a neurosurgeon, really a neurosurgeon, and to get an MRI and to see what's precipitating their trigeminal neuralgia. But it's one of those things in neurosurgery that you can actually fix, which is great. You can't fix a lot of things. Unfortunately, this is a neurosurgeon I worked with when I was a medical student loved trigeminal neuralgias, because he said that was something he could actually fix. He said that 60% of his patients would be dead within 2 years, right? He's dealing with brain cancers, very aggressive brain cancers, by and large. And he said that, but trigeminal neuralgia is something that I can fix. He's like, I love trigeminal neuralgia. That's something you can give someone back their life. You can fix the problem. Whereas a lot of other people, you can't, unfortunately. So it's important to go and see somebody qualified that can sort of give them a proper diagnosis. But at the same time, you can always start a carnivore diet and see how that helps. It's going to help in 1,000 other ways anyway. And I would expect and be very optimistic that it will improve their symptoms, and that the pain won't be as bad. That's what I would expect to see, because I've seen that happen before. But again, it depends on what's causing it.
Nice, thank you. Now we've just got a super chat come through again. See, my 4-year-old was diagnosed last year with cardiomyopathy. He didn't have it prior because we took him to the cardiologist when he was 2. Can Carnivore reverse COVID-induced cardiomyopathy, Dr. Chaffee?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have data on that, but it is true that just like with cancer and any sort of other issue, that if you're giving your body, the right tools and the right materials to optimize their health, and excluding out all those other things that are going to disrupt the immune system, disrupt your normal workings, increase inflammation, and so on, that's going to, be a problem. So your body can heal from a lot of things. I don't know if they can heal from this. I mean, we don't really have data on it because it's brand new, and we certainly don't have carnivore data on it. We don't even have keto data on it, but it will improve your immune system. It will improve things overall. You'll eliminate out things that are bad for his body, and you'll give him everything his body needs to be as healthy and successful as it's possible to be. And so if it's possible for his body to naturally heal this eventually, which your body can heal a lot of things if you just sort of get out of its way, he's going to, I believe that he'll have his best shot doing that on a biologically appropriate, high fat, meat-based diet.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got another super chat here. Just okay, so Akorianisma has, can I do carnivore with protein in the urine?
Yes.
I think wouldn't carnivore reduce the amount of protein in your urine, because you're not consuming everything else that's causing the increased
damage to the kidney. Yeah. Yeah, most likely, you know, I mean, so people have different reasons for having protein in their urine, but you know, if you have some sort of, you know, retinopathy where you're leaking proteins, it shouldn't really get through into the urine protein. That means there's some sort of, you know, damage in the you know, glomerular sort of filtration system that you know, so these big proteins are generally too big to get through that. And so, you know, you wouldn't you don't normally see an appreciable amount or a detectable amount of protein in your urine, but so something's happening there. But more protein, you know, eating more protein has been shown to actually improve kidney function, and a carnivore diet can certainly do that as well, because you're getting more of the materials that you need to be healthy, like protein, like fat, but also you're eliminating out, exactly as you said, Dave, that you're eliminating out different things that are in plants that are directly nephrotoxic, such as oxalates and other sorts of things, right? So things that are going to do direct damage to your kidneys. So I would expect that to improve. But you know, with anybody in any situation, any medical condition, any genetic condition, you're still human. And as a human, you still have you know, the same optimal diet as every other human being on earth, right? Every lion with any medical condition still should eat what lions eat. Every elephant that has any sort of genetic dissimilarities or medical issues is still an elephant and should still eat what the other elephants are eating, and so on, right? And we're the same. So there is something optimal for humans to eat, just like there is something optimal for lions to eat, for blue whales to eat, for orcas to eat, for salmon to eat, for hummingbirds to eat, right? There is something optimal for every species of animal. Okay. We are the same species. And so, you know, you just sort of, if you're doing that, and I think it's a carnivore diet, that's what I believe all the best evidence shows. That we've been doing this for millions of years, predominantly meat, if not exclusively meat in certain areas at certain times, then, you know, if that's what we've been doing for so many millions of years, that is definitionally what we're designed to eat, because we were either designed this way as Homo sapiens, or you know, we've evolved this way and we've been exposed to this for millions of years. That means that we are adapted to it. You know, it does take a long time to adapt to things. Millions of years is more than enough, right? So if we've been doing something for millions of years, we are very well adapted to that, right? And then people saying like, no, we're more adapted to plants that we haven't eaten in 2 million years. We just started eating last week. Okay, well, that's not the case. You know, why would you say that something we've been eating for 2 million years and by definition would be adapted to thoroughly would not be better for us than something we just added in, than broccoli, which doesn't exist in nature, which, you know, corn that doesn't exist in nature, mangoes that don't exist in nature in the form that we eat them, you know? So, you know, eating what you're biologically designed to eat will always be the right decision. I can't think of a single exception to that. You know, there might be, you know, but you know, just biologically it doesn't make sense, you know, because we're designed to eat a certain way. And if, you know, if we had some sort of condition that went like, oh my God, meat's going to kill you, that would have been worked out of the species a long time ago. You know, maybe like a de novo, you know, genetic sort of change, but you know, I've never heard of one anyway. It's certainly not anything that's described in any medical textbook that I've come across.
Nice. Thank you. Larry, question for you. Looks like you have rosacea. Has it improved since CD?
Yeah, it's actually improved a lot. A lot of this is my CPAP machine, because my mask right now is a little older, so I got to have it on really tight. But it's probably cleared up 50% from carnivore. I remember when I quit drinking, and it's been over 8 years now. You know, it's like a badge of shame. You know, my face. I thought it would never get better, and it did a little bit from quitting the alcohol. But when I started eating really the ketogenic diet is when I started seeing it clear up, and then with carnivore, it did even more. I have old pictures I've shown on the channel before where, you know, it's pretty bad. But a couple of the things that the carnivore diet has helped. Um, as far as my alcoholism goes, is neuropathy, pretty bad in my four small toes on both feet. And that has gotten about 50% better since being on the carnivore diet. It used to tingle, and I used to have a lot of pain associated with it, not just the numbness. But now they're still numb, but I really don't have any discomfort from it anymore, and that's been a huge improvement. Which is, quality of life is definitely improved. It's not annoying me. One other thing is when I very first quit drinking, I was having severe bouts of vertigo, so bad that I went and saw a doctor after I got out of rehab, and I was in rehab almost 6 months, and they diagnosed me with Meniere's disease, which, I mean, it was debilitating. It would hit me so hard I couldn't even drive a car, and at the time, I was driving for a living, and I remember the doctor telling me, "Yeah, you might have to go on disability. There's no cure for this." And I was like, "Wait." He says, "And it's hard to prove." And I fell into a depression. It was like, if anybody's dealt with vertigo, it just crushes your spirit, because if you feel like there's nothing you can do. Um, it After I got sober, it cleared up. Thank God. But I still had really bad tinnitus in one ear, ringing in my ear. And ever since carnivore, that has gone completely away, but it still ramps up every once in a while, maybe for a day or two. But I'll go, 1, 2 months without no ringing. No, I haven't had vertigo in forever. So if you are drinking alcohol, man, break those chains, give it up. But yeah, I still got a little bit of that, that badge of shame. So appreciate that too, Brett. Thank you.
And just to say, 8 years, that's awesome, Larry.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you guys, man.
Yeah.
Both of y'all. I mean, in the same thing, like I relate to you guys on that regard. Both of you guys coming off of alcohol and getting sober, getting clean, and that happened for me the day before my 18th birthday. So it's definitely something that every time someone asks me about alcohol, you got to, obviously, as with everything else, you got to decide what's right for you. For me, alcohol has never added anything to my life. It's only taken away, and it's only, I'm for whatever reason with carnivore, it's like you start working on one thing and you progressively make things so much better. And alcohol is one of those things that I've only seen it destroy people who get caught up on it. And I think that you'll find very quickly that the more of those things you start taking out of your life, the better off you're going to be down the road. Just add things to your life that build you up, that get you to your goals, that help you, down the road rather than harm you or potentially could harm you. So I'm proud of you guys, and I love you guys, man.
Thanks, brother.
Cheers. So maybe Sean, you want to take this question first. How can you lose fat? If you're eating fat, shouldn't you eat lean meat and have your body use your body fat if you're overweight?
Well, I don't know, but it works. So so every cell in your body needs fat, and so I mean, honestly, eating fat doesn't make you fat. Eating fat adds energy, add fuel to your body, but I did add protein as well, so I don't even know where to go with that one. Other than, I did add a lot of fat, and I've heard people say the same thing, but for me, it was my insulin and my blood sugar that I was having issues with. And whenever you continuously spike those things, whenever your hunger signals and everything in your body's off, you're not giving it the nutrients that you need. Everything takes fat, to all your hormones, every blood, your blood, everything. So it's not like you're just adding fat, eating fat, and it's adding fat onto your body. So maybe Chaffee or Larry or somebody can explain that a little better than me, but I just know that it does work.
Chaffee.
Yeah. So you just have to remember that fat is not just an energy source. It's not just a calorie. I think we should really try to drive that out of our head that, oh, it's calories. Calories are an insane way to measure the energy that we get from food, or the nutrients we get from food. Calories are when you burn something in a bomb calorimeter in a lab, and how much heat energy is expressed from that reaction, right? We're not combustion engines, right? So that might be useful when you're talking about octane, high octane gas, and the differences in fuels, because you're going into a combustion engine, has no relation to what happens with us. There are dozens of different carbohydrates. They have unique chemical interactions with other molecules in your body. They have hormonal interactions and can express and suppress various hormones, different carbohydrates. They're all carbohydrates. They all have 4 grams of 1 gram equals 4 kilocalories of heat as expressed. So that just must be what it is. No, these are complex organic molecules that have complex chemical reactions in your body. Same with all the dozens of amino acids and all of the different fatty acids. These are unique chemicals, and they have unique chemical interactions in your body. First of all, you cannot use trans fats or for energy at all. You can't cut these things, trim them, burn them, anything like that. They just get stored and packed away in your arteries and things like that, and kill you, right? So there's no energy there from trans fats, right? And when you cook with seed oils, they turn into trans fats, at least partially. And those different seed oils and omega-6s, you get an abundance of these things. You have to just store it in your fat because you can't use it as energy, right? So these things are not just calories, right? We should get rid of that thought in our head. So fat is an essential nutrient. Not only is it an essential nutrient, it is a conglomeration of a number of essential nutrients, essential fatty acids, essential fat soluble vitamins, right? So you need these things. It's not just enough to just get lean stuff. Oh, that we don't want fat. I have fat, so I can use that fat. No, you don't have all the fat all the necessary nutrients that are just sitting in your fat. That's stored energy. That's not necessarily stored nutrients, fat soluble vitamins, and so on. And generally, you're storing fat. A lot of these things can be omega-6s. Your body's just sequestering out. As people have greater adiposity, they have a higher proportion of that adiposity as omega-6s, right? And so you can't use those as energy. You don't want all of that stuff, right? It's just you're sequestering it away to sort of get it out of the way, right? So you need fat because it's an essential nutrient, and you generally need around gram for gram, a gram of fat to a gram of protein, right? So that's about where most people line up, and then everyone's going to be a bit individual on their needs and demands. But it is true that your body will prioritize, using the energy that's available from breaking those bonds in fat and making ketones and things like that from your fat source. And in fact, when you just get away from carbohydrates, you lower your insulin, you change your hormonal workings of your body, and you can now access your fat stores, because high insulin blocks lipolysis. So it blocks the cleavage of your fat tissue and proteolysis, blocks the cleavage of those molecules to then make into ATP and use for energy. So you're fixing your hormones first and foremost, and you're letting your body work normally. You're able to access your body's fat stores, but that doesn't mean that you don't need those nutrients, those fat soluble nutrients that come with it. You do, and but you will find that your appetite isn't as great as it will be. When I got down to a stable body fat percentage, my appetite literally doubled basically overnight. It was like one day I was just eating sort of like just a fatty ribeye, and it was like the next day I'm like, nope, I need 2. And it was just like 2 every day after that, and it was just like, it just hit. And my body was just like, yep, that's it. We're not tapping into the stores. That's the rainy day fund. Now you got to bring home the bacon. We're not gonna come into it anymore. And so, that's what I found. And so your body will still prioritize, energy usage from your fat stores. You don't have to mess with it. Your body knows what it's doing. We try to micromanage one of the most complex systems that exists in the universe, right? We have trillions of cells, and those have tens of thousands of interactions with other cells at all times. Inside those trillions of cells, you have trillions of molecules that have that are having trillions of chemical interactions every millisecond, right? So trillions times trillions times trillions. I mean, this is just insanely complex. You're never going to figure it out. You're never going to micromanage that. What you need to do is just give your body what it is asking for, what it needs, and just stay the hell out of its way. Gophers don't try to micromanage their diet, right? Squirrels don't either. Koalas don't pull out a calculator to figure out their macros, right? You don't have to, right? Because nature is natural. It just happens. So if you're just eating and you're eating like, that fatty steak tastes good, your body's saying, eat the damn steak. That's what it wants you to do. Oh no, I should reduce the amount of fat because X, Y. No, you shouldn't. You should listen to your body. If you're staying out of your own way, if you're not eating things that will disrupt your hormones, disrupt your signaling pathway, make your brain think something else is happening than is actually happening, then you can actually listen to your body. And that's what I would do. Is just eat what you're supposed to eat, fatty meat, right? Don't eat anything else that's going to screw with your system. Right. And after that, you just eat the satiety because you'll get negative feedback on your taste. Right. It tastes good at first because your body wants those nutrients. But every time you eat something, every time you take a bite of that something, you actually get negative feedback. It tastes less good and less good and less good and less good. And eventually it says, doesn't taste good. And sometimes the lean meat's going to taste amazing. A fatty don't really want it. Just listen to that. Your body's telling you how much lean it wants, how much fat it wants. So you should just listen to that. If you're limiting what you're eating, maybe you can starve yourself into a smaller dress size, but it works in concentration camps all the time, right? But that doesn't mean that that's good for you. That doesn't mean that's the most optimal way to do it. It doesn't mean that you're improving your health and your metabolism in the way that you could, right? Because if you're chronically limiting the amount of nutrients your body's getting, your body thinks, because your body's giving, hey, I'm giving them the signal. I'm saying, hey, bring it in. They're not bringing it in. So that means that it's not available. And so, okay, we need to shut this down. We need to stop these biochemical processes. We need to slow down our metabolism because we don't have the resources coming in necessary. You're not just redlining your car until it blows up, right? You have to say, okay, no, we need to slow this down. And that's what it's doing. So you're going to slow down your metabolism. You start eating something else again. You start eating more, and all of a sudden you're going to put on weight. Oh, I don't like that, And so you're going to have these problems. This is why these yo-yo diets come in. You starve yourself. You trash your metabolism. Then you go back to eating just the same thing that you were eating before, maybe even cleaner than you were before, and you put on more weight than you lost. Why the hell is that? Right? Well, it's because you destroyed your metabolism. So you want to encourage your metabolism. You want to show your metabolism in your body and your biochemistry like, hey, we've got an abundance of resources. We have more than enough. We have exactly what you're asking me for. Always giving you what you want. Always giving you what you want. Now your body's right. We can ramp this sucker up. We can start healing things, repairing things, recycling things, and using this energy to go and fight cheetahs and things like that. So it's the signals that you're giving your body are going to have a very, very profound effect on your health and your weight loss. And so that's something that I would keep in mind. So again, just fat is an essential nutrient. It's something your body needs to have. It's not just a calorie source. It's not, that's just that word should be stricken from the lexicon. And it's not just a source of energy. Okay. It is nutrition. It is necessary. And so just give your body what it needs.
It is hereby banished from the lexicon from henceforth.
Hitherto, I shall henceforth not hear the word.
My body's definitely telling me the 2 ribeye thing now. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
About time you start eating more.
I ain't scared of 3. I'll do
it. Sebastian asking, Anthony, I'm also in Perth. I've been on the kit for only 7 days so far. Any ideas on where I can go out with a girlfriend to eat? Lone Star?
I've never been to Lone Star. I'm assuming that's a restaurant, but most places will have, you know, meat on the menu. There are a couple steakhouses that I've been to. Was like Meat and Wine Co. They do pretty good steaks, and you know, we went to this place called Epicurean, which is like a buffet at like the casino here. It's called the Crown Casino, and that's actually pretty good. So it has a buffet, it has a lot of different options, but they have a lot of really good meat options, especially on the weekend. And like, especially on the weekend, they have amazing meat selections on the weekend. So like, I posted a couple pictures when I went there, like on my Instagram, just like plate just piled with just every animal that, you know, is, you know, come near that kitchen, and that's good. You know, it's really good. But you know, I tend to, you know, cook a lot, you know, and especially because, you know, at this point, I mean, I make steaks better than any restaurant I've been to. One steak that came close was Rockpool, and that's a restaurant here. But I went to the one in Melbourne, and that was great. But that was like a 90-day dry aged, like super special, crazy steak, and that was just like, yep, that's as good as my steaks I make on a daily basis, right? And the ones that are like super special, like whatever, that mine would be still better than that, right? But that was the first one that I ever came across that was as good as the ones I make just like on a Tuesday, you know, and it was like $250. It was like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
whereas like mine are $20, and you know, for 2.5 pounds, you know, and so it's a big difference in price. But you know, if you want to go out and do something nice with your girlfriend, there are places to go. I mean, there are plenty of steakhouses. You know, I like the Meat and Wine Co. There's another one that I'm forgetting, that's just in downtown Perth. Obviously, Rockpool. There's Epicurean. There's that Fire restaurant, FYRE. That's a guy, John Mountain, who's a really nice guy. I've met him, and I plan on going to his restaurant. He does a lot of meat sort of stuff. So obviously there's going to be sides and things like that. You just order the meat main dish, ask for it without the sauces and seasonings, and you say you don't need the sides, you know, thank you. And you know, a lot of places, a lot of steakhouses and things like that generally do the steak a la carte. You know, you have to order all the sides with it. You only get the steak if you order the steak. John got in a bit of a tiff with some of the vegans down here. There was a vegan that came to his restaurant and messaged him, and he was actually very accommodating, saying, "Hey, well, I'm a vegan. I want to come to your restaurant." First of all, it's a steakhouse, right? It's a meat restaurant. You know, I don't go to a vegan restaurant and go, "Oh, you know, I'm actually a carnivore. Can you accommodate me and slaughter your lamb and bring it in?" You know, it's just like, and he was just like, "Look, okay, I'll figure something out." He was going to make a special dish just for her, you know, to accommodate her vegan things, and they had salads and all that sort of stuff that she could have ordered. But he was just like, you know, look, I'm happy to make something special for you. Well, on the night that she came in, he was actually at a private engagement, doing a private catering event, and wasn't there, and had just basically been so busy that it slipped his mind, he forgot about it, and so she ordered a salad or whatever, and then wrote a review. And, you know, it was just sort of like, well, this was disappointing that this happened. And he was just like, well, do that part, I'm fully on board with, you know, I dropped the ball there, you know, and I feel bad about that and like to make it up for him. But then she went on to say, well, this just shows that he's just a poor quality chef, and he's just terrible. He just can't accommodate, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right. No, I'm not gonna accept that. And so he's just like, look, you know, this is a meat-based restaurant. This is a steakhouse. No vegans. Vegans are not allowed. Vegans are now banned from the premises. I will not be accepted. And he had it on the Instagram page for the restaurant, and for people that are in the area. Fire, FYRE. It's just sort of northern suburbs. And Connolly, I think the area is, and so he just said, it's just like, you know, from henceforth, you know, no vegan shall be allowed, and for mental health reasons, right? It's just like, And obviously they thought they're talking about them, but he's like, no, for my own mental health, I just don't want to deal with this crap. And obviously that had the huge backlash that you would expect, from the vegan community, because the thing is too, is that she was like an influencer or something like that, but like the whole vegan crowd just went nuts, and they all started going on like review apps and Google reviews and all these sorts of things, and they left no review but just 1-star review, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, just to trash his reputation and his rating and things like that. They'd never been there, they're just trying to destroy his business, which is really shitty. And so he's just like, no, not doing that. And so he's had some run-ins with the vegan protesters coming in and like playing like screaming pig noises and things like that. It's just like, oh my god, having to get like the police involved. It's absolute just headache and nightmare. And I really feel bad for the dude, but at the same time, a lot of people have sort of risen up and like, good for you. We're all tired of this. This strong arm tactics from people. You want to do what you want to do, that's fine, but you don't get to bully other people. That's right. To your way of thinking, because we don't agree with you. We don't agree that it's better for the planet. We don't agree it's better for the animals. You have to kill more animals to grow 1 kilo of plant-based protein than animal-based protein. You are killing more animals. You are destroying the environment, and that's not the nicer thing to do. And so you don't get to force that on people. And but yeah, so people stood up for him, and like his got like tripled their business like basically overnight, because they're like, yep, I like this guy, I like the cut of his jib, I'm gonna go down there. So you can try that as well. So fire restaurant. Sorry, Sean, you were gonna say something?
Oh no, I was getting fired up. I was like, man, we about to charge hell with a water pistol or something. Like, yeah. Like, so it's not good for the planet. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I want
for your kids, or anybody.
I'm a big advocate. Like, you figure out what's good for you. You have to make that decision, but you dang sure not going to tell me what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So. I don't know. And I was going to just mention to him, he didn't ask me a question. If you want to date her, take her out. If you want to marry her, grill at home.
Yeah. Well, but it is true that some people like to date, and they like to go out and go on a special night out and not have to cook and things like that. But just remember, there's always meat on the menu, and if you're so you can just order the meat dish, and just go from there. And if you go to a steakhouse, you're done. You just order a steak, and it doesn't even need to be an issue. Because normally steaks just come out just as the steaks. They don't have a whole bunch of sides, and if you don't eat the sides and you don't draw attention to it, no one's going to pay attention to you either. You eat the steak and go, oh yeah, I'm full. And no one cares. No one cares at the end of the day. The less you care about it, the less attention you draw to it, the less other people will pay attention to it and care about it. It's the difference between someone just walking casually down the road and someone sneaking like this. I mean, like, what the hell is that guy doing? And you're going to notice that, and so if you just walk and you just, this is totally normal, it's going to be totally normal. I did this for 5 years in my early 20s. It wasn't doing carnivore. I was just like, plants are toxic, I'm not going to eat them. And so I just stopped eating them. I had no conversations with anybody at any time about it ever. I don't remember a single time I actually spoke, maybe just mentioned to my brother because I was living with him at the time. My parents, oh yeah, don't eat these things. Had no conversations. Just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And I just didn't talk about it. I was just like, no, I'm not going to eat that. Okay, I'll eat that part, whatever. And because I was just eating the parts that I wanted to eat, and just not saying anything about it, literally no one ever at any time said anything. Right. And, now that I'm more conscious about it, then it starts coming up in conversations more, or especially when I was a bit more self-conscious about it, when I go out to restaurants and things like that, or with people, I felt I needed to sort of justify what I was doing because I was doing something consciously now, and it felt a bit weird. And then again, as soon as I stopped caring or paying attention to it, it really doesn't come up again.
Yeah. Nice. So, Christine, thank you very much for the kind super chat. If you've got a question, please punch it in. And Gemma, thank you also. And Titanium Master, thank you very much. Very kind of you all. Okay. And we've got another one here from Mac Main. Doc, thanks for your answer during Q&A. I'm trying to maintain carnivore and stay fit, former special ops, but it is insanely difficult to discipline oneself from carbs. Any words of motivation and encouragement? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you're very welcome. That's awesome that that you used to do special ops, and thank you for your service to whatever country you served. It is hard to get away from carbs, but just remember that like anything addictive, there is there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? So even major drugs like cocaine and heroin, people do get off them, and after a couple weeks, that chemical addiction is significantly improved. And the same thing with carbs and sugar and things like that. I usually find at about 2-week mark that people don't really have as much cravings. Maybe they remember liking them and like, oh, that was good, but they don't have the like, I need to eat this sort of craving that they may have had earlier on. Also remember that any sort of carb craving or anything like that could be your brain telling you that you're just hungry, because your hunger signals are so different on a carnivore diet that sometimes your brain's just trying to scream at you in different sorts of ways. And so if your bread really smells good, or you really I really want to eat that bread or that pizza or that whatever, ask yourself, am I hungry? Do I need to eat something? Try eating meat and eggs, fatty meat and eggs, and eat until it stops tasting good. If it tastes good, that means yes, you are hungry. Okay, and that's what that was, that craving, that expression of eat these carbs was your body telling you to eat, right? So eat food, eat meat, fatty meat, and eggs, and keep eating until they stop tasting good. Your carb cravings will be severely diminished, if not eradicated completely. And then you just keep doing that, and you just make sure you stay full. Dr. Baker said something, people said, how much should I eat? And he said, eat enough that you don't have carb and sugar cravings, right? That's a pretty good rule of thumb. If you're ever getting those cravings, you probably should eat a bit more. It's not going to get rid of all of them necessarily early on, but eventually it will. And usually after about 2 weeks, most people don't miss them. And, and staying fit is generally very easy. You're just eating enough meat and working out, which is something that I'm sure you don't have a problem with. On the exercise side of things, and just eating enough meat. So in order to maintain muscle mass, put on muscle mass, and build lean muscle mass and things like that, you just need to eat enough. You need to work out, and you also need to eat enough meat. And by eating enough fatty meat to meet your body's demands for your fitness and your exercise, you're also going to suppress those carbs. So just remember, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's usually about 2 weeks. You make it to those 2 weeks, you're usually in the clear after that. And that if you're getting these cravings before or after those 2 weeks, think, am I hungry? I should eat something. If you're getting those cravings, try eating fatty meat. That generally suppresses it. If you're eating enough fatty meat every day until you're full, until fatty meat stops tasting good, that will generally suppress those carb cravings a lot. And so just remember, okay, you've done special ops, you've gone through crazy sorts of, trials and boot camps and all these sorts of things that lasted way more than 2 weeks. All right. So you can tough it out for 2 weeks. I know you can, right? We've all done it, right? And we're not special ops, right? So I know that you can do this, right? So you just balls your way through it and just be like, right, I'm going to make it through 2 weeks. That's my mark there. And those are the tools to do it. Eat a lot of fatty meat and make sure that you're eating enough for your body, and that should suppress that. And by the time you get to the 2 weeks, those should be extremely diminished, if not gotten rid of entirely. And after that, it's just habit. You're used to eating bread with your meal. You're used to having a donut with your coffee. You're used to, eating the things that other people eat. And it's just a matter of changing your habits. And 2 weeks in on it is a very good start. But that addiction should be pretty much gone at that point.
Nice. So Super Javi, thank you for the super chat. Never finish an entire steak. Do you recommend throwing it in a blender and just drinking it? Larry, how do you feel about blending your steak?
That's a no-go for me. When I got my dentures, I actually thought about doing that, but I ended up having to learn to eat again with saltine crackers. I had to go off carnivore for a couple weeks, but yeah, I really did consider trying that because Cassie and I had been back on carnivore for about a month when actually so I could lower my blood pressure to get my teeth extracted. That when I first went in for my appointment, the dentist told me my blood pressure was so high that he wouldn't extract my teeth. And so I had two options: go get back on my lisinopril or get back on the carnivore diet. And I chose the carnivore diet, and my blood pressure normalized. It took about 6 weeks. And when pureeing beef, because I was really stressed after a month on carnivore, I'm feeling awesome, and here I got to get my teeth pulled, and it was such a stressful time. But finally, after I just gave up. I was eating potted meat. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's like Vienna sausages, but it's nasty meat in a can. And I tried that for a couple days, and I just couldn't do it. So, what about you, Sean? You ever blended up a nice big fat ribeye?
Honestly, I haven't. I have not. So, but I ain't mad at you. However you got to get it,
Right.
brother.
Well, I would just say that, if you can't finish the steak and your body's telling you to stop, then you can just stop. You don't have to force yourself to eat anymore. Yeah, exactly. So, that's great that you are getting there, and if you're losing weight, you're losing fat and things like that, you'll get to a point that, your hunger starts going up. But I try to have leftovers, right? I try to make more than I think I'm going to want, so that I know that I'm saturating my body's desire to take in fatty meat, right? So I will, if I am, if it's a 1 steak day or a 2 steak day, I'll sort of make that, and if I get to the end of that, I'm going like, God, that was so good. And I'm like, I kind of want a little bit more. I go and make another one. Maybe I only eat a quarter of it. Maybe I only eat half, but I eat until my body is happy with me. So if you're getting that already, with the steaks that you're eating, fine. That's fine. You put it in the fridge, you eat it next time. It will taste good again, even though it's cold, And so, when you're hungry, that will taste very good. So, the blender things cracked me up because I've only seen a couple episodes of that show Shameless, but that was actually something that was in that. You guys know that, where it's like this like degenerate dad who's just like a alcoholic and into drugs and just like passes out wasted on the floor and and sort of like in a more impoverished area in Chicago, I believe. And so it's really about their kids and all these sorts of things. And he's just an absolute wastrel. But that was it. He was had like liver failure from like alcoholism and like couldn't really eat. And so he like grabbed some like they had some like waffles and this and syrup. He just starts like throwing it in the blender, and they're, oh no, you don't want to do that. And like pouring syrup in it and just pour some water. Oh no, you don't want to. Don't do that. And he's like blends it up and just starts drinking. Oh no, that's not. You're just doing that. It's just like, oh my God. So no, I don't think you need to do that. I definitely don't think you need to force yourself to eat anything, right? And so when I talk to people and they say like, hey, I'm not really enjoying this. It takes me 2 hours to finish a meal. Like I get halfway through and it tastes really good, but then it stops tasting good. It's horrible. I have to force myself for 2 hours to finish it. And I just point out to them that no, actually, you were finished 2 hours ago. As soon as that started being a chore to eat, you're done. You shouldn't do that. You don't need to force yourself. It should be desirable. It should be enjoyable. And once it stops being enjoyable, go do something else. That's fine. So yeah, I don't think you need to power it down.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think has kind of helped me be successful as well, is for months and months on top of months. Like when I cook steaks or eggs or whatever, like I will take and grill 5 at a time. And then I will have 1, 2, 1.5, whatever I want, throw the rest in the fridge. So guess what I'm having tomorrow? yeah, it's already ready. And then I prepare eggs for 5 days, at 4 or 5 days. And so when it gets time for my first meal, whenever that happens to be in the mornings, I just go grab my eggs and butter and I eat. I'm done. Like, I know what I'm going to have every single day. It's there, it's ready. And when it doesn't sound good, like you said, I'm just not hungry.
That's it. Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't imagine blending. But yeah, I just stop eating when you're not hungry. Like, I can feel it myself. Like, the amount I eat for breakfast, I only have that one meal a day. And once I'm getting towards the end, I can feel my body's literally telling me, yeah, you don't need to, just stop now. Just cut it out. Just finish. And yeah, so just keep it for later, or yeah, just cook something fresh when you're hungry. Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Chaffee, as a woman, I have seen videos saying that I need more carbs around my time in the month. Is this true?
I don't think so. I mean, I've certainly seen people talk about that. I haven't gone through their specific arguments for that. But I just look at this, again, going to first principles. I've come to all of this through first principles. What are we biologically designed to do? What would we have been doing in nature? What would our species have been doing for the vast majority of our existence, right? Homo sapiens has been around for about 300,000 years, right? The last 100 years, we've had all this processed food and crap like that. I mean, it's a blink of an eye, right? So what have people been doing? And even the agricultural revolution, right? 10,000. Well, a lot of people are saying it's actually probably 8,000 years ago, not even 10,000 years ago, right? So you're talking about a fraction of a percentage of the time that Homo sapiens have been on Earth, not even other human species that go back sort of 2 million years before that. So what have we been doing then? What were we doing in the ice ages? What are the Inuits doing right now? Are they up in the Arctic Circle, and then 1 week out of the month they just naturally just go like, "Ooh, I need some chocolate," and so they're just putting in some carbs and things like that to help their cycle? No, I mean, they don't have access to it, right? So and what would be the natural driver? To say that no, we're eating this meat, we're eating what everyone else is eating, but I need to go and like just dig for roots or tubers or something like that. I mean, like, did that really happen? Did we get that sort of instinctual drive to eat something that other people weren't eating? Does that happen to any other animal in the world at all? Even a single one? Not that I know of. Koalas eat what koalas eat, whether they're just barren in estrus or pregnant or or nursing. They eat what they eat, right? And same with lions, same with whales, same with all these sorts of things. It's not just like, oh no, I'm going to go into estrus, so I need this other thing that's not actually strictly to my biological design and necessary for me. So you can come up with a lot of different reasons and rationales and say, well, this influences this and this and this. That's all mechanistic, right? Which is fine. You want to have a mechanistic argument for what you're doing. If you can't find a mechanism for what you're talking about, it may be that there isn't one. And so, but if you're looking at that and saying, oh well, but this influences this and this influences this and this and this, and so therefore you should eat some carbs because this is going to help your progesterone levels and your this, that, and the other. But does that happen in real life? Are people that are going on a carnivore diet actually finding that they're having more difficulty getting pregnant? No, in fact, they're improving their fertility. I mean, this is why Dr. Robert Kiltz, who has like the third largest fertility practice in America, he tries to get people on a carnivore diet, or at least a keto, high fat, meat based keto diet. But he has vegetarians and vegans and things like that come to him as well. He meets people where they're at, but he says that this is the best way to do it. Eat animal fat, eat meat, get rid of the carbs, get rid of all this other stuff, right? And so I've never heard him say that, no, actually, this is really important. This actually improves fertility. I've never heard him say that. I've heard him say that actually you just want to eat meat as well. And I think from a conceptual standpoint, that you're supposed to eat what's optimal for you, and that's not going to change, based on your time of the month. That doesn't make sense to me, because there will be, the vast majority of our past has been in times when they didn't have a health coach getting on YouTube saying, oh yeah, this is how you want to micromanage your biochemistry throughout your cycle. People just had to live. They had to eat what was available to eat, and so I just don't see that being a thing. And so, a lot of these things, there was a sort of a debate, more of a discussion with Georgie Dinkoff, who's a really nice guy, but he's gone on, Dr. McCullough and other sorts of podcasts talking about how actually, long-term ketosis is actually bad. It's counterproductive. You raise your cortisol, you can put on visceral fat, you can actually gain weight, all these things. And that's exactly the opposite of what, clinicians like myself are seeing in practice when we have patients on a carnivore diet. And then it was like, but there's these studies that can show that you could raise your cortisol and could do these things and could do these other things. Okay, there are other studies that show that you don't, and that have a lot of other sorts of things happening as well. So you can get a study that'll say anything, and so maybe there's some sort of study that suggests that progesterone is improved in some fashion with carbohydrates, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be there are other studies that will probably say the opposite. And so which ones do you trust? Okay, so maybe you don't just look at those studies. Maybe you look at our biological design. Maybe you look at our biological past. Were we able to do that? Right? Because if you're not able to be, fertile, maximize your fertility and your health and procreate, your species doesn't make it. And so how would that work in the ice ages? How would that work for the Inuits right now? How would that work for the Nanette in the Arctic Circle in Siberia right now? How does that work for all these other sorts of populations that only eat meat or historically only eat meat? Ethiopia, during the time of Herodotus and the Persian Empire, the Herodotus Chronicle, they said that they only ate boiled meat, and they only, would drink, water and, the milk of their cattle. Bit of carbs and lactose, sure, but these are carnivorous populations throughout history. The Inuits don't have milk. They're not milking seals and polar bears, right? They're just eating meat and blubber, right? They have kids, and they have kids in very, very, very extreme conditions, and it's very hard to do. And so infant mortality rate's very high, and so you need to have a lot of kids, right? And so
I've got this vision of being milked right now in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't see that. So it's I just don't. I think it's fine to come up and have those theories and arguments and things like that. I don't see it being a problem in people now, and we certainly haven't had that be an issue of any of any substance throughout our history when those carbs were not available. And what would have been the trigger, the biological trigger to that? I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just an excuse for some people to just go and eat chocolate before they're, oh, no, I need this. The doctor told me to, I've got to have some chocolate and bonbons and things like that. It's like, this is good for my progesterone. I don't know, but but what would have been the trigger before that? What would have been the trigger, before we had someone telling us we needed to do that? What would have been the trigger during, Paleolithic era, where, there weren't health coaches, people were just living and surviving, right? And you killed a buffalo and you brought that back and you ate the buffalo, and why would the women not eat the same thing as the men? The females of every species eat the same things as the males of the species everywhere you go, right? The only difference being when mammals are infants, they're nursing. But then when they wean, they start eating what the adults eat, and then they eat that same thing for the rest of their lives, right? And so, that's what we should be doing too, I think.
If you're here today, think of carnivore.
Yeah. So guys, we've been on for 2 hours now. We've still got 568 people in the stream. So I think we probably should be wrapping it up soon, but just we've got a few super chats left. So I was wondering if we could do like a lightning round with the final super chat.
Mhm.
Okay, but before we start the lightning round, there's quite a funny one here that I wanted to show from Homesick Buckeye. It says, if a koala had my Costco card, I bet they would eat different.
Probably. It's funny on that about koalas. They koalas. It may be just because of their design, or what I think maybe because they evolved eating this highly toxic and narcotic plant that is eucalyptus. Is probably actually screwed with their brain development. I'm curious to see if you could feed them other sorts of leaves that wouldn't be toxic to them, but also wouldn't be as have those same effects. Maybe their brains would develop differently because they actually don't have like a cortex. Right? So it's just like the only sort of mammals that don't. So that's the part where you actually have conscious thoughts and things like that. So it's like they have like so it's basically they're very primal brains, and I maybe that's because of what they're eating, but they're basically really stupid. And so if if they're in the tree eating eucalyptus, they'll do that all day. But if you just take eucalyptus leaves and put it in a pile in front of them, they have no idea what the hell it is. They won't eat it. Right? It's like they're pretty retarded.
Wow.
But it's funny. I've always sort of wondered that if it's a brain development thing, is just that's just their biological design, or if it's just that they've sort of adapted into eating this highly toxic plant and they're surviving on that and they're doing well and they're being successful on that because no one's competing for resources and they can be pretty safe in those trees. But is that also like damaging them if they sort of ate other? Well, you probably just feed them meat and they would actually do just fine because that's getting them what they need to eat. And I wonder if that would change their brain development. I suspect it probably would. I'm very suspicious about that. But yeah, that's funny. The Costco card. Yeah.
So INFJ Tyrone asks, what is everyone's take on keto testing? I found out cheese and shrimp knocked me out. Okay, Sean.
Don't eat cheese and shrimp.
No, I test the ketones, but if your body's burning, using ketones, then you're probably not going to be eliminating a lot of them. So testing becomes kind of here nor there at some point, right? Larry?
Yeah, we bought a meter, I don't know, about 6 months ago, or no, during our fast February. And check it once in a while, just for giggles. As far as the strips are expensive, so I'm not going to sit there and test every day. But most people will tell you there's really no need to. Just eat your meat, and your body is wonderfully and beautifully designed. It knows what to do. So, Dr. Chaffee.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I've never checked ketones. If you are going to check ketones, you should check your blood ketones as opposed to urine. Urine's much less accurate. So you check your bloods. But, if you're just eating meat, you should just let your body get on with that. If you're eating a lot of dairy and not necessarily cheese, but like milk and things like that have carbs, yeah, that might raise your insulin. You'll feel a bit tired. People generally do, and your insulin's going up. It's suppressing ketone production and gluconeogenesis and so on. Your blood sugar can go down a bit, and you get a bit drowsy. But in general, if things are knocking you out and you're feeling a bit drowsy or whatever, then yeah, just avoid those things. It's not necessarily a product of your ketones, though. Inuits have very low ketones. They say, oh, well, these aren't high enough to be in ketosis. Are they eating any carbs? No. Are they making carbs and glycogen and blood sugar? Yes, they're in ketosis. All right, I'm sorry. That's just the biochemical state. When you go into that, if you're in a fed state, you can't do that. When you're in a fasting ketogenic state, then you do that. Right. And they do that. It's just their ketones aren't massively elevated. So it really doesn't matter. Just eat meat, be happy, eat the meat that makes you feel good. If shrimp and cheese are making you feel a bit drowsy or not your best, just eat something else. And I wouldn't worry too much about the ketones unless you have cancer and you're looking at your GKI index, your glucose ketone index. That's quite important to keep below 2 or under 1. it does seem that people with as low as possible, like under 1 if possible, GKI for as long as possible, that they can do better on cancer. Yeah, Dave, any thoughts? Do you check your ketones?
I did back when I started doing Atkins ago, and I would say it's a mistake. Just measure your progress by seeing in the mirror. Are you happy with that? Are you happy with how you're feeling? Don't worry about stuff like ketone testing unless there's some medical reason you need to do it. Okay. What's your take on these people who swear carnivore keto cause sleep disturbance and electrolyte issues that then reintroduce carbs for relief? Larry.
Man, if I reintroduce carbs for relief, I'm in big trouble, because then I'll feel like total hell. So I mean, I had a little bit of insomnia when I first started the carnivore diet. But I really narrowed that down to my consumption of coffee in the afternoons. And once I eliminated that, my insomnia issues went away. So I don't see any reason to introduce carbs at all. So, Sean?
The Bible says it's like a dog going back to its own vomit. That's how I feel about it.
Isn't that what I just said?
Yeah, same thing. Different verb.
I mean, I have come across people that say that their sleep gets disturbed with that. I found the exact opposite. Most people find the exact opposite. I talked to so many, far more people tell me that their sleep has improved dramatically going on a carnivore diet than has said like, oh, I'm having trouble sleeping. It's very, very few people as a percentage that I've spoken to that have sleep disturbances as opposed to improvements. I was certainly one that improved dramatically. I was always a terrible sleeper, but now I sleep amazingly well, and I don't need as much sleep. I get much higher quality sleep as well. I think that, a lot of these things are going to be individual, but, just like Larry was saying, like a lot of people still drink coffee. It's going to affect you much, much more on a carnivore diet. The 2 or 3 times I've had coffee or caffeine in the last, 6 years or so, I have had it like in the morning, and then, buzzed with energy for a few hours, and then feel like pretty crappy for the rest of the day. But at 2 a.m, I can't sleep, and I'm just going like, what the hell is going on? Why the hell can't I go to sleep? And it's really annoying. And so, and I've already had the crash. I've already felt like crap the rest of the day. And so I should be ready to go to sleep. But no, 2 a.m, I'm wide awake from that one coffee in the morning. And that's really annoying. So, if I don't, a lot of people still do this. In fact, so many people still do it that there's some detractors of the carnivore diet that say, oh, well, that you have to drink coffee because you don't have fibers. You can't move your bowels. So you have to drink coffee to force it out. No, they were already drinking coffee before that, you dumbass. That's like they just continued to do it, and if you eat enough fat, then you don't have any problems with constipation. And so that's what I would say, is what else are these people doing? Are they having any sort of caffeine or this or that or the other that could possibly do it? There are some people that do say that. They say, I need to have a bit of carbs. Sally Norton is one of them. She's basically 100% carnivore, but she says she has to have a bit of carbs before at night to go to bed. Because again, that thing, you drink some milk, you're going to suppress your ketones. You're going to suppress making new blood sugar and liver glycogen. And so insulin is going to go up for a bit. That's going to suppress that. Your blood sugar is going to go up for a bit. Then it's going to go down for a bit. And you're going to go, oh, your brain doesn't have energy. You go to sleep. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know why the hell else it would. But I think there's probably some other thing going on that's keeping people awake. Maybe coffee, maybe caffeine, something like that. As far as electrolytes, that was something we mentioned earlier. Some people do have a problem when their insulin comes down, because insulin has a role to play in the reabsorption of electrolytes of your kidneys. And so now these things are massively high, and your body has to compensate by getting rid of more because it wants to keep this in balance. And then all of a sudden your insulin goes back to normal because your body was compensating for a high insulin. When it goes back to normal, that suddenly, because it's been taking years to sort of slowly ramp up your insulin more and more and more over, on the aggregate, and now it comes down pretty suddenly. Maybe it takes a bit of time for your body to adjust to that, and you spill out more electrolytes than you want to. But how are they testing that? Are they getting blood samples and blood tests, or are they just sort of, I feel like my electrolytes are low? How would you know? How do you know that's what's going on? How do you know you're not just having, withdrawals for something or just having a bad day? Cramps. Some people, you can get cramps usually from low magnesium, or in extreme cases like low calcium. It's much more commonly just dehydration, right? So, I know people that have taken a lot of electrolytes and still get all the cramps, and still get all the low electrolyte symptoms that they were trying to treat with that. And obviously it's not the low electrolytes because they're taking electrolytes, right? So some people can get a bit of a disturbance in their electrolytes. That can happen, especially when the insulin is normalizing. Generally, it's not long term. Generally, your body will adjust to that. You want to take a bit of electrolytes. I still think that's a lot better than completely tanking your metabolism and changing your hormonal expression of insulin, which affects nearly every other hormone in your body. It's going to affect your testosterone, your growth hormone, your estrogen, and it's going to cause high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, metabolic syndrome. It's going to cause all sorts of hell in your body. Is that better than just taking a bit of electrolytes if you need them? I don't think so. And the vast majority of people don't need to do that. And if they do, they only need to do it for a short period of time. And again, think about what else you're doing. Are you drinking coffee? That'll strip your body of magnesium. There you go. You're going to hit two birds with one stone. You're going to get shitty sleep. You're going to get electrolyte disturbances. Okay. Don't drink coffee. And, and often it's something simple like that people just aren't actually doing. Just meat, just water, eating to completion. And generally when people do that, that gets rid of the vast majority of issues people have. And drinking enough water.
Nice. Okay, so Gemma wants to know, how do you gain weight on Carnivore? Larry, Sean, who else go for it? Larry, you want to jump in? How do you gain weight on Carnivore?
I've never attempted to gain weight. I mean, I've fluctuated a little bit on Carnivore, but I have no idea. Eat a lot. I don't know, Sean. What's up?
Lift heavy things.
Lift heavy things.
Yeah, lift heavy things. Eat protein, eat fat, and lift heavy things, and you'll start gaining weight.
Right.
Yeah. So there's two ways to gain weight on a carnivore diet. One is by stopping a carnivore diet, and then you'll gain weight by eating the wrong things, or adding a bunch of dairy, artificial sweeteners. These sorts of things will put on bad weight. If you want to gain good weight, lean muscle mass, then exactly what Sean said, you need to stimulate your body to grow by lifting weights and doing sprints, and then giving your body enough nutrients. If I'm working out all the time, I'll get leaner and stronger, but I won't necessarily get bigger unless I'm eating enough, and my appetite will go up. And if I'm not able to meet that demand just from time restrictions and things like that, I'll put on a bit of weight, I'll get in better shape, but I won't put on the same mass. If I'm able to eat enough, often twice as much as I would normally eat, like 4 or 5 pounds of meat a day. It's sometimes hard to do when you have a busy schedule. Then if I'm able to do that, I put on weight very, very easily. That's just my body. Other people would be different, but lift weights, do sprints, things like that. That'll stimulate muscle growth, right? And then just eat until you're full. Eat until meat stops tasting good. Meet your body's demand, and it'll grow. You'll be fine.
You were cutting out there, Dr. Chaffee, on my end. Did you say you eat 4 to 5 pounds a day?
When I'm working out. If I'm working out heavily, I'll double. So normally eat like 2 pounds or so, maybe a bit more than 2 pounds a day.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's just normal, right? Before that, I was eating less than that, right? I mean, maybe a pound or so, maybe 1.5 pounds a day, because I actually was working out a lot when I was still cutting fat. But then like the day that I hit down to like 6% body fat, all of a sudden it's just like, nope, you need to eat twice as much. So I started eating sort of like, more weight than that, more steak than that after that. And then if I'm just maintaining and just being sedentary, it's usually about, probably around 2+ pounds of meat a day, just to maintain my body. And if I'm working out and lifting weights a lot and exercising, then it will easily double. I'll basically eat sort of 2 times a day of 2+ pounds in each sitting. And if I'm doing that, I stack on muscle. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Like at one point I was putting on about a pound or more of muscle every time I worked out. It was absolutely insane. Like every time I just hopped on the scale, like at the gym, I'd be like a pound up, a pound and a half up, a pound up, a pound up. Like on leg days, after leg days, I'd go up like a pound and a half, sometimes closer to 2 pounds. Nuts, absolutely nuts. But staying lean, I wasn't putting on any fat. And it's pretty crazy to watch that, but I had to be very diligent and make sure that I got enough to eat. You have to make sure you're getting enough to eat, and I couldn't do that in one sitting. I had to do that in 2 sittings, and so that can be a bit of a bitch for people. But yeah, that's how you do it. When COVID ended, and I was down to like I think 205 pounds, super light for me, very light for me, and or maybe 210 or something like that. Yeah, whatever. And in any case, when the gyms open back up, I'm like, right, screw this. I'm going back. I'm going back on my like professional lifting schedule when I was playing rugby, and I was just like 4 days a week at least, if not 5 or 6. And so it's just like I didn't have time to do like a big 3-4 hour workouts that I normally did, but I at least got in there for an hour to 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes minimum. I just got in there, and I made it to a point of doing that, and I was able to do that consistently for about 5 weeks, and then I just work out on top of me. But in those 5 weeks, I put on 25 pounds of lean muscle.
Wow.
You're not supposed to be able to do that even with steroids. It's usually not going to be like lean body mass, lean muscle mass in that time. With that, you're going to get a lot of water weight and other sorts of crap as well. There's just stack on muscle. Now, I had weighed a lot before. I think my heaviest, with muscle was like, 265, like very muscular, not all that much fat on me, and then with some fat extra on there, I was probably like 273, 275, still with a 6-pack, but with a lot of extra weight. And normally like my playing weight during the season was like a very lean 245, and so going from being at 205, my body, was very happy to reverse that. And so, it's got up to like 230 very quickly, and then 240 subsequently after that. And that seems to be where my body likes to be. If I'm able to sort of work out 3-4 days a week and eat enough, my body likes to be just around 240 and pretty low body fat percentage.
Nice.
Okay,
so we've got our last super chat here, which is Joe's Frogs. 422.99 pounds in 7 months. That's awesome.
Nice.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congratulations. Good job.
Still have 84 pounds to go. I have stalled completely for the past month. Could artificial sweeteners be the issue? Thanks, doctor. So, Dr. Chaffee, do you want to
Yeah, 100%. Artificial sweeteners are a major stall that I see. I see a lot of people, they sometimes even quit doing carnivore because they say, well, I needed to lose weight, and that was something they were so desperate to achieve. And so it was very important to them that they did that, and they weren't really getting that result. And so they say, okay, I have to try something else, which is, it's fair enough, if that's what's very important to you. But I talked to them. I was like, okay, what exactly were you eating? What else was happening? I was like, well, it really sucked that carnivore didn't work for me because I felt so much better, I had so much better energy, my skin got better, my hair got better, my autoimmune issues, I came off medications, my autoimmune issues went into remission, but I just stopped losing weight, so I guess it didn't work for me. I really wish it worked for me. And I was just like, it really sounds like it worked really well for you, actually, that it was doing a lot of things, which is why I tell people, focus on your health first and foremost. How do you feel? What your energy like, and all that sort of stuff. That's the most important thing. The weight will come as a byproduct, right? The weight is the smoke, not the fire, right? You need to address the fire. The smoke will clear on its own eventually. Okay. And, then I sort of would ask this lady and others who, what exactly are you eating? I always say, what exactly are you eating? Oh, I just eat meal. Okay. So no coffee, no artificial sweeteners, no this, no that. And all of a sudden, all this stuff starts coming out. They're having keto treats. They're having monk fruit sugar. They're having dairy. They're having this, they're having that. They're having other things. So it's not just meat. It's not just water, right? Which is what this is, right? What are the Inuits eating? What were we eating during the ice ages? Meat, water. That's it, right? Sometimes people. So, that's really what you want to do, is just eat meat and water. And so you want to cut all that stuff out. So especially if you're hitting a stall, artificial sweeteners are not good. They will trigger insulin release. They can trigger reactive hypoglycemia. So you take this in, your body says, great, there's sugar coming down, here's some insulin. And then there's no blood sugar, but the insulin's out there, and you get low blood sugar, right? And you also suppress your ketones, and you can feel pretty crappy as well. So definitely get rid of that. Get rid of dairy. A lot of people stall on dairy for fat loss. Now, also remember, weight loss is not the same as fat loss, right? Because when I'm eating a lot of meat and I'm working out, I put on muscle very easily, right? And when I was losing fat, I was also gaining muscle. So I lost 23 pounds in 10 days, which is nuts. But I didn't lose an ounce after that for like 6 months, until I hurt my knee and I couldn't work out, and I couldn't run, and I couldn't do squats. And then my muscle mass on my legs shrank. And that's when I started losing weight, right? I was 243 for months. And then I started going down like 220. I lost 20 pounds of muscle in my legs, and I was not happy about that, right? And so, it was, it's, you can still lose fat and put on muscle, and your weight will stay the same on the scale. So it's about health first and foremost. Secondarily, distant second, is about body composition, about losing fat, putting on muscle. The scale doesn't get on that list anywhere. It can be a rough guide. It can sort of help you, and it's sort of fun to see, like a video game. Like Sean lost 245 pounds in a year, and like, that's awesome. But you know what? I guarantee you he lost more fat than that. I guarantee you he lost more than 245 pounds of fat in that time, because he would have put on muscle. So if you look at body composition, he probably lost more like 270, 280 pounds of fat, because you would have put on 20, 30 pounds of muscle as well, potentially, or at least some, right? So there's going to be an offset there, right? And so, you've got a lot of weight to lose. So you're putting on muscle, but you're also losing fat. You're losing more fat than you're putting on muscle. Great. Maybe that's evening out now, right? And maybe you're just sort of tipping the balance, on the other side with the artificial sweeteners and other sorts of things. So what I would do is A, focus on your health first and foremost. B, get down to just fatty meat and water. Get rid of everything else out of your system. And then, think about body composition next. How are your clothes fitting? How are you looking in the mirror? And you want to get a DEXA scan or something like that to get a more accurate example, and then check it again in 6 months. And you'll see that you are actually losing a lot of fat and putting on muscle and bone. Yeah, that's what I would say. Anybody else have an idea?
Yeah, I would have said the same thing that you said as far as the insulin response. That's about it. I think you covered it all. Adequate. Larry, Dave, you guys.
Dr. Chaffee nailed it.
Yeah, I think he nailed it. Yeah. So, guys, this has been like one of our marathon live streams. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to be on the live stream with all these people that I now see as friends, and I'm very happy to be with all of you guys. Sean, any final words?
Yeah, just thank you guys for being here. Like this, share it with somebody you think it'll help. Subscribe to the channels where you're at, and be here next week. We'll see you guys then. We appreciate you. Stay strong. Keep pushing forward. Larry?
Yeah, thank you all for watching. No matter what channel you're on, it's an honor for me to hang out with these guys and be a part of this community. I love y'all, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone. Thanks for including me here as well, and thanks everyone for showing up and listening. Hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Later.
Bye.
See you guys.